Some legends were born for the spotlight. Dr. J was a teenage phenom. Kareem was breaking records before he could drive. Larry Bird, the undisputed hick from French Lick. Magic Johnson was so good he earned his nickname before college. And LeBron crowned the chosen one in high school and landed a $90 million deal before he could legally drink. The league didn't just hype him, they marketed him like the second coming. But this kid, he didn't even make varsity as a sophomore. His coach said he was too small. And the NBA, that wasn't even the dream. His first love? Baseball. His goal? To make the major leagues. But rejection lit a fire. Fueled by obsession, a ruthless work ethic, and a maniacal will to win, he led his team to 2 separate three-peats as the undisputed #1 option, a feat no one else in NBA history has ever accomplished. Kobe Bryant tried to match it in 2011, but the Lakers were swept by the eventual champions, the Dallas Mavericks. His career seemed to have the perfect ending, a game-winning jumper against the Utah Jazz to clinch his 6th championship. But that storybook finish was complicated when he came back a second time. This is the story of Michael Jordan, the kid who walked away from baseball and changed basketball forever. Bird and Magic saved the NBA, but Michael Jordan took it global. Before NBA players had signature shoe deals, Jordan paved the way. Before guards were trusted to carry dynasties, he shattered the blueprint. He proved you didn't need a dominant big man to win championships, and he did it 6 times. But before the rings, before the shoe deals, before the 6 finals MVPs, before the global fame, he was just Mike, a skinny kid from Wilmington, North Carolina, with a big dream and an even bigger chip on his shoulder. Michael Jordan was born on February 17, 1963, at the former Cumberland Hospital in Brooklyn, New York, the 4th of 5 children. And for a moment, it wasn't even certain he'd be born at all. After the unexpected death of her mother in the fall of 1962, Dolores Jordan was so emotionally shaken that her doctor ordered a week of bed rest, fearing a possible miscarriage. But Michael's story wouldn't be written in the streets of New York. The Jordans stayed in Brooklyn until 1968, while Michael's father, James, completed his mechanics training through the GI Bill. When Michael was 5, his parents, James and Dolores, packed up the family and moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, hoping to escape the rising crime in Brooklyn. In Wilmington, they built a disciplined, working-class home rooted in faith, education, and family values. Dolores worked in banking. James, a former military man, took a job at General Electric. He was stern but playful, a storyteller, a tinkerer, and the kind of father who'd coach his kids in the backyard. He wasn't just a dad, he was a hard worker, and young Mike picked up that trait early. Back then, basketball wasn't the dream. Baseball was. In fact, it was also his father's dream. James Jordan hoped Michael would one day play in the big leagues. Jordan once reflected,
I've envisioned myself playing as a kid, playing professional baseball. Because I started baseball when I was 6 years old, and I had most of my success as a child in baseball. And I really didn't have my success at basketball until in my later years. I never chased that dream of becoming a professional basketball player or even a professional baseball player. I just played the sport because I loved it. And because of the work that I put into it, next thing you know, success was kind of bestowed upon me without me actually chasing it. It just happened. I didn't think I would ever be this successful.
Michael idolized Yankees manager Billy Martin, admiring his fire and swagger.
I just like his controversial attitude. He always aroused the fans and still maintains a good record.
Michael imagined himself wearing pinstripes, not a Bulls jersey, and he was rarely seen without a bat in his hands. It was James who nurtured that dream, taking him to batting cages, tossing him pitches, and teaching him how to compete. Michael didn't just play baseball, though. He played football, baseball, and basketball, and he was fiercely competitive in all of them. But at that point, there was nothing particularly remarkable about him. He wasn't the biggest, he wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the most talented, but he had something else. A spark. one ignited in the backyard by relentless battles with his older brother, Larry. Larry was the third oldest of the 5 Jordan children, and growing up, Michael was constantly compared to him. That rivalry didn't just push him, it shaped him. They played endless games of one-on-one, and Mike later admitted it was Larry who molded his game and competitiveness. "Man, my older brother Larry used to kill me," Jordan told Slam magazine in July 1996. "He was older and bigger than me, he would beat me, talk trash, and never let me forget it. What that did was make me work that much harder to beat him. He had no idea I'd end up taller than him. I look at those games as a great experience. That's when I developed my love for the game. It made me work harder to get better." Michael even joked that if Larry had been 6'2", most people would remember me as Larry's little brother. But success on the hardwood didn't come easy. At 15 years old, Michael Jordan was passed over for the senior varsity team at Laney High School. Contrary to how it was portrayed in The Last Dance, he wasn't cut from varsity entirely. He was still playing on the junior varsity team as a sophomore. At just 5'10", he was overlooked in favor of 6'7" Leroy Smith, simply because the team needed size. Mike wasn't quite ready for the varsity as a 10th grader, recalled Coach Fred Lynch. "We all agreed he'd be better off getting playing time on the sophomore team than sitting on the bench with varsity." Most kids would have quit, but not Mike. Even then, the signs were there. Todd Parker, a Laney teammate who had played sports with Jordan since T-ball, saw something brewing, even if he couldn't quite explain it at the time. Final game of our sophomore year, we were playing down in Goldsboro. Mike stole the ball and had a breakaway, and he went in and dunked it. I mean, he threw one down, Parker recalled, still in awe decades later. "I believe that was the first competitive dunk of his life. We were like, wow, where did that come from?" But even that flash of brilliance wasn't enough. A few weeks later, Jordan's name wasn't on the varsity list. That rejection shattered him and defined him. He went home and cried. Then he got to work. Every morning before school, he hit the court. Every night after dinner, he was out shooting again. He didn't just want to make the team, he wanted to dominate it. That cut was the moment Michael Jordan, the legend, was born. Not because he eventually made the team, but because he learned that effort could close the gap between talent and greatness. And then, fate gave him a boost. Not only did his skills improve, but an improbable growth spurt changed everything. Mike was about 5'10" at the end of 10th grade, no more than 5'11", recalled Fred Lynch, Laney's current varsity coach and the sophomore coach during MJ's Buccaneer days. "He always had talent. He was our best 9th grader and our best 10th grader. He played with a lot of heart, had guard skills, and always had big, strong hands. By his junior year, he shot up to 6'3", almost 6'4". All of a sudden, you had size to go with that talent and drive. He just blossomed. And the rest, as they say, is history." He dropped 35 points in his very first game, setting the tone for what was to come. Jordan went on to lead Laney High School in scoring during both his junior and senior seasons. As a senior, he averaged a triple-double, 26.8 points, 11.6 rebounds, and 10.6 assists per game, earning him a spot as a McDonald's All-American. The kid who once got cut had become a McDonald's All-American, averaging a triple-double and stuffing gyms with college recruiters. Nearly every major program wanted him. Duke, Syracuse, South Carolina, Virginia, UCLA. Michael Jordan had his pick of top programs. But in the end, only one school felt like home: the University of North Carolina. Jordan admired Dean Smith's program, the discipline, the team-first culture, the winning tradition, and the track record of developing talent. "Coming out of high school, I had all the ability in the world, but I didn't know the game," Jordan later said. "Dean Smith taught me the game. When to apply speed, how to use my quickness, when to use that first step, or how to apply certain skills in certain situations. I gained all that knowledge so that when I got to the pros, it was just a matter of applying it. A lot of people say Dean Smith held me under 20 points a game. Dean Smith gave me the knowledge to score 37 points a game, and that's something people don't understand. But more than anything, Jordan respected that Coach Smith didn't promise him anything. No guaranteed starting spot, no special treatment, just a chance to earn his place. And for Michael, that was all he needed to hear. Michael arrived in Chapel Hill as just another freshman, not a star, not yet. In fact, he was still going by Mike Jordan. That's how he was listed in the 1981-82 UNC Media Guide. But Dean Smith saw something special. Jordan became only the fourth freshman ever to start his first college game under Smith, joining the likes of Phil Ford, Mike O'Koren, and James Worthy. In that debut game, November 28, 1981, against Kansas and Charlotte, Jordan scored 12 points. He wasn't a household name. He wasn't even the top recruit in his class. In fact, Michael Jordan ranked fourth on reporter Ken Mink's national top 100 list of high school players, behind Adrian Branch, Stuart Gray, and Bobby Lee Hurt, and just one spot ahead of Patrick Ewing. But Jordan had big dreams, and even bigger inspirations. He looked up to Walter Davis, a UNC legend, and Magic Johnson, the reigning NBA Finals MVP. Two players known for their flair, leadership, and ability to rise when it mattered. And under Dean Smith's system, Mike Jordan started to evolve from a promising freshman into a rising force. He made an immediate impact, earning ACC Freshman of the Year honors in 1982. While his stats weren't eye-popping, he showed poise on the biggest stages, the ability to rise in the biggest moments. And soon, he'd deliver one of the most iconic shots in college basketball history, the one that hinted at the legend to come. He wasn't supposed to be the hero. Not with James Worthy and Sam Perkins on the floor, not with the national title on the line and Patrick Ewing anchoring Georgetown's defense. But when UNC needed a bucket, Dean Smith called a play, not for his stars, but for his freshman, Mike Jordan. With 17 seconds left and the Tar Heels trailing by one, the ball swung to Jordan on the left wing. He rose up and let it fly. Swish.
Doherty to Black. The time, 18. Shot, Jordan!
63-62, North Carolina. The Tar Heels would win the national championship. Dean Smith would get his long-awaited title, and a freshman named Mike Jordan had just introduced himself to the basketball world. After the game, Jordan told reporters he'd had a pre-game vision of hitting the game winner, but in the moment itself, he couldn't bring himself to watch. To tell the truth, Jordan said, I didn't see it go in. I didn't want to look.
Mike went on to play 2 more seasons for the Tar Heels, averaging 20 and 19.6 points per game in his sophomore and junior years. But despite his individual success, he never captured another national title. In his sophomore season, UNC reached the Elite Eight before falling to Georgia, though Jordan did his part, finishing with 26 points and 6 rebounds in the loss. His career scoring average of 17.6 points per game over 3 years in Chapel Hill may seem modest compared to other all-time greats, but those who saw him up close knew the truth. He was built for the next level. His coach Dean Smith once said, Michael is a late bloomer. He improves every month. Look at his defense. When he was a freshman, he had a lot of work to do. Last year, he won the defensive award 12 times. He's going to be one of our great defensive players, although I don't think I'll tell him that until he graduates. You can just watch him get better and better. When he was a freshman, he ran the 40 in 4.8 seconds. This year, he ran it in 4.3. His teammate Brad Doherty added, he's a perfect player. When I was growing up, I wanted to be 6'7" and able to do everything on the court. I wanted to grow up to be what Michael Jordan grew up to be. James Worthy, Hall of Fame forward and former Tar Heel, said, he'll be a star the instant he steps into the NBA. There's no question he'll be great. We always knew that. And even off the court, Jordan's fire was impossible to ignore. His UNC roommate and teammate Buzz Peterson said, it's not just basketball. He hates to lose at anything. If we're playing cards or backgammon, we'll have to play all night until he wins. There were plenty of glimpses of Jordan's competitive fire, even beyond his game-winning shot in the national championship. When the defending national champion Tar Heels were in danger of starting the 1982-83 season 0-3, Jordan saved them. In a game against Tulane, he stole the ball and hit a spinning 24-footer at the buzzer to force overtime. North Carolina would go on to win in triple overtime. Just 2.5 months later, number 1 North Carolina pulled off a stunning comeback against number 3 Virginia, overcoming a 16-point second-half deficit. Trailing by 10 with just 4 minutes and 12 seconds left, Jordan came up big. First, with an offensive rebound and put back to cut the lead to 1, then he forced a steal and threw down the go-ahead dunk, sealing the win in classic MJ fashion. In his final regular season ACC game, Jordan dropped 25 points to help the Tar Heels finish an undefeated conference season, holding off rival Duke 96-83 in double overtime. Michael Jordan finished his career in North Carolina, winning numerous awards, including the 1982 ACC Rookie of the Year, 1982 All-Tournament Team, 1982 Freshman All-American, 1983 and 1984 Consensus All-American, 1984 Consensus National Player of the Year, and many more. By the end of his junior season at North Carolina, Michael Jordan had solidified his status as one of college basketball's premier players. But despite his rising stardom, he wasn't the consensus number 1 pick in the 1984 NBA draft. That title belonged to Houston's dominant 7-footer Akeem Olajuwon, a can't-miss prospect at a time when big men were considered the cornerstone of NBA franchises. Jordan wasn't even in attendance at the draft.
The Chicago Bulls pick Michael Jordan of the University of North Carolina.
While others walked the stage at the Felt Forum in New York, he stayed behind in Bloomington, Indiana, preparing for the Olympic trials. His focus wasn't on suits, cameras, or handshakes. It was on making the U.S. Olympic team and winning gold. With the number 2 pick, the Portland Trailblazers, already stacked with all-star guard Clyde Drexler, passed on Jordan and selected Sam Bowie, a 7-foot 1-inch center from Kentucky, to fill a need for size. And just like that, Michael Jordan fell to number 3, where the Chicago Bulls, a struggling franchise desperate for a star, selected him, though not without hesitation. Bulls general manager Rod Thorne reportedly even tried to trade the pick. Reflecting on the decision, Thorne said, "There just wasn't a center available. Jordan isn't going to turn this franchise around. He's a good offensive player, but not an overpowering offensive player." But before he ever played a minute in the NBA, the summer of 1984 gave Michael Jordan a new kind of proving ground: the Olympics. Under the fiery leadership of Coach Bob Knight, Team USA assembled an all-college roster, the standard at the time, since NBA players weren't yet eligible for international competition. Still, Jordan and Team USA faced an uphill battle. As part of their Olympic preparation, they would play a series of exhibition games against a rotating cast of NBA All-Stars, a gauntlet of seasoned professionals who weren't taking it easy. These weren't casual scrimmages like today's All-Star games. Bragging rights were on the line, and the intensity was real. Led by Jordan, along with fellow college stars Patrick Ewing, Sam Perkins, and Chris Mullin, the young squad faced off against legends like Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas, Robert Parrish, and Mark Aguirre. But rather than being intimidated, Jordan thrived. In Iowa City, a sold-out crowd watched Team USA stun the NBA All-Stars 92-79, with Jordan leading the way with 16 points. Across other stops, Minneapolis, Phoenix, and beyond, the college team went a perfect 8-0 in the series. They didn't just compete, they dominated. What was meant to be a tune-up became something else entirely, a warning shot, a glimpse of what was to come. Michael Jordan wasn't just the future, he was ready now. The momentum carried into the 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. Jordan led Team USA in scoring, averaging 17.1 points per game, as the Americans rolled to an undefeated 8-0 record and captured the gold medal. The team averaged 95.4 points per game, while allowing just 63.3, a staggering 30-plus point differential, comparable to the dominance of the 1996 Dream Team. But what made this even more impressive was that Team USA in 1984 was made up entirely of college players, and they dominated against seasoned pros. Jordan's explosiveness, confidence, and clutch instincts were on full display, confirming what insiders already knew. He was built for the biggest stage. That summer wasn't just preparation, it was Jordan's global debut. He had outplayed NBA All-Stars, led his country to its last Olympic gold with an all-collegiate squad, and officially entered the league as the third pick in a loaded draft class. The transformation was complete. The world now knew his name, and the NBA was about to feel it. The moment Michael Jordan stepped onto an NBA court, the game changed. Drafted third overall in 1984, behind Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie, Jordan didn't waste time proving he should have gone first. From opening night, he was electric. He attacked the rim with a fury that felt personal, glided in midair like he was born there. By the end of his rookie season, he averaged 28.2 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 5.9 assists per game. He was a one-man highlight reel. And he didn't just impress the fans. Even veterans like Larry Bird took notice. Jordan was named Rookie of the Year and a starter in the All-Star game, a rare feat at the time. So rare, in fact, that Chicago native Isaiah Thomas allegedly took offense at all the attention Jordan was receiving and tried to freeze him out. Jordan, true to form, took it personally. In his first game after the All-Star break against Thomas and the Pistons, he erupted for 49 points in a masterful all-around performance, proving he belonged in the league. Whether the freeze-out was real or not, the story only highlights Jordan's hyper-competitive nature. But just as the league began to brace for his takeover, disaster struck. In just the third game of his second season, Michael Jordan broke a bone in his left foot, sidelining him for 64 games. Most players today would have taken the year off, opting to load manage and protect their future. But Jordan wasn't like most players. This was his first major injury. He hadn't missed a game in high school or college, and being forced to sit out hit him hard. He felt anxious, frustrated, and desperate to return to the court as soon as possible. Despite the advice of team doctors and Bulls management urging him to shut it down for the season, Jordan pushed back. He begged to play. He rehabbed obsessively, even convincing the Bulls to let him return to North Carolina for recovery. What they didn't know was that Jordan was secretly ramping up his activity, playing one-on-one, then two-on-two, eventually working his way into full 5-on-5 scrimmages. When Bulls management found out, they were furious. But Jordan didn't care. He was desperate to get back on the court, even if it meant risking a career-ending injury to play the game he loved.
If it's re-injured, it could conceivably take longer to heal, and it may not heal by natural processes and require surgery.
This stretch also highlighted Jordan's competitive edge. He refused to sit out, even when the Bulls had no realistic shot at contending for a championship. He scoffed at the idea of tanking the season for a better draft pick, and had no interest in playing for ping-pong balls. Even in his early seasons, Jordan's mentality was clear. He played to win. He didn't care about draft positioning, lottery odds, or rebuilding. He wanted to be on the floor, competing, no matter the circumstances. Eventually, the Bulls relented, but only under strict conditions. His minutes would be tightly limited to reduce the risk of re-injury, just 7 minutes per half initially. Even then, doctors weren't convinced the fracture had fully healed. But Jordan, ever the competitor, insisted on playing. As a result, he posted the lowest scoring average of his Bulls career, 22.7 points per game, while playing just 25.1 minutes per game. Late that season, he returned and helped lead the Bulls to a 30-52 record, just enough to secure the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, and a first-round matchup with the mighty Boston Celtics. In the 1986 playoffs, facing a Celtics dynasty led by Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, and Dennis Johnson, Michael Jordan delivered one of the greatest postseason performances in NBA history. Coming off a serious foot injury and having played only the final 18 games of the regular season, no one knew what to expect. In Game 1, Jordan exploded for 49 points in 43 minutes, but that was just the warm-up. In Game 2, at the legendary Boston Garden, he dropped a staggering 63 points in a double overtime thriller. In Game 3, however, Jordan came back down to earth, scoring just 19 points as the Bulls were blown out by the eventual champion Boston Celtics, a team loaded with 4 future Hall of Famers. Still, despite the stinker, Jordan finished the series averaging 43.7 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 5.7 assists against the best team in the playoffs. The Bulls were swept, but Jordan's performance left a lasting impression. After Game 2, Larry Bird famously said, "That was God disguised as Michael Jordan." From that point forward, Jordan didn't just show promise, he proved he was different. Over the next few seasons, Jordan piled up personal accolades like a machine. From 1986 to 1993, he won 7 straight scoring titles, averaging 33.2 points, 6.4 rebounds, 6 assists, 2.8 steals, and 1 block per game, showcasing a two-way skill set unmatched at the guard position. And he did it all without relying on the three-point shot. He led the league in steals 3 times, proving he wasn't just scoring at will, he was locking opponents down on the other end too. He was named to the All-Star team in each of his first 9 seasons, a testament to both his popularity and dominance. And in 1988, Jordan reached rarefied air, winning both NBA MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, a feat accomplished only 3 times in league history. He wasn't just the best scorer in the game. He was dominating both ends of the floor like no one ever had. But there was still one thing he couldn't conquer: the playoffs. The Bulls lost to the Milwaukee Bucks 3-1 in Jordan's rookie season, then were swept by the Boston Celtics in back-to-back years, 1986 and 1987. Their second leading scorer was Charles Oakley, who averaged 14.7 points per game, followed by John Paxson with just 11.3 points per game in the 1986-87 season, his first full year back after recovering from a broken foot. In 1986, the Bulls also made a coaching change, hiring Doug Collins to replace Stan Albeck. The move didn't immediately improve their postseason fortunes, but the team was starting to turn the corner. Jordan was drawn to Doug Collins' relentless energy and fiery competitiveness, traits that mirrored his own. Collins' strategy was simple: build the offense around Michael Jordan to fully unleash his scoring ability. The approach fueled some of Jordan's most legendary scoring runs, but in the playoffs, it wasn't enough. He kept running into the same roadblock. That roadblock was the bad boys Detroit Pistons, a bruising, deep, and relentless squad led by Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer, Dennis Rodman, Joe Dumars, and Vinnie Johnson. Jordan had his moments, including the iconic game winner against the Cleveland Cavaliers, but he couldn't get over the Detroit hump. They didn't just beat him, they beat him up.
The Pistons designed the infamous Jordan rules, a defensive scheme built to physically punish him every time he touched the ball. The strategy was born out of Chuck Daly's frustration after Jordan torched them for 61 points in 1987. Daly vowed that Jordan would never do that to them again. In 88, in 89, in 90, the Bulls were sent home, bruised, battered, and beaten. But it wasn't for lack of effort. Despite the constant punishment, Jordan still averaged 30 points, 7.1 rebounds, 5.9 assists, and 2.1 steals per game, against a Pistons defense relentless in its pursuit to shut him down. This was arguably the most physical era in NBA history, and the bad boy Pistons took that physicality to another level. They didn't just foul Jordan, they hit him hard every time he dared to enter the paint. But as Jordan's career progressed, Bulls GM Jerry Krause began building a stronger supporting cast. Krause orchestrated a draft day trade that sent Olden Polynice to Seattle in exchange for Scottie Pippen, and selected Horace Grant with the 10th overall pick out of Clemson University. He also made a controversial move, trading Jordan's close friend and enforcer Charles Oakley to the New York Knicks in exchange for veteran center Bill Cartwright, a deal that initially infuriated Jordan. The Bulls lost to the Pistons 4-1 in the 1988 Eastern Conference semifinals, with rookies Horace Grant and Scottie Pippen being thrown into the playoff fire for the first time.
The following year, the two teams met again, this time in the Eastern Conference Finals, with even higher stakes. As the 6th seed, the Bulls were heavy underdogs against a 63-win Pistons team that held the best record in the NBA. However, Chicago looked poised to pull off an upset after taking a 2-1 series lead, but the Pistons adjusted, clamping down on Jordan and holding him to just 24.3 points per game over the final 3 games, after he had averaged 35 points through the first 3. After back-to-back playoff losses to the Pistons, the Bulls front office made another change, promoting assistant coach Phil Jackson, who had been hired in 1987, in another shrewd move by Jerry Krause. The decision wasn't well received, especially by Jordan, who had been Doug Collins' biggest supporter. After all, Collins had just led the Bulls to the Eastern Conference Finals the season before. Unlike Collins, who leaned heavily on Jordan in isolation, Jackson brought structure. He introduced the triangle offense, a system designed by Tex Winter that emphasized spacing, ball movement, and reading the defense. Jordan was initially skeptical, but eventually bought in, but they still had one last hurdle to overcome. In the 1989-90 season, the Bulls won 55 games and rampaged through the first 2 rounds, including a 4-1 series win over Charles Barkley's 76ers, to set up yet another rematch with their bitter rivals, the Detroit Pistons. The series was a bloodbath. Each team held serve on their home court, setting up a decisive Game 7 in a hostile Detroit crowd. Jordan came ready. He scored 31 of the Bulls' 74 points. The second leading scorer, Horace Grant, with just 10. This was the infamous Scottie Pippen migraine game. He managed only 2 points in 41 minutes. The Bulls were blown out 93-74, and the Pistons went on to win their second straight championship in the height of the Bad Boys era. In 1989, Jordan began working with a personal trainer who would become instrumental in prolonging and enhancing his greatness, Tim Grover. How these two met is the kind of story you'd expect from a movie. Tim Grover was reading a newspaper article about how Michael Jordan was tired of the physical punishment he was taking from the Detroit Pistons in the early 90s. Inspired, Grover sent letters offering his training services, but only to the other Bulls players, not Jordan. His reasoning? Michael was already the best player in the game. Why would he need help? But fate had other plans. One of those letters ended up in Jordan's hands. Curious, MJ gave it to the Bulls' athletic trainer and team physician, instructing them to find out who this Grover guy was. For the next 3 months, the Bulls staff did their homework, vetting Grover, asking questions, and learning about his methods. Then one day, they told him they had a client lined up. No name, no details, just an address. When Grover arrived, he was stunned. The person who answered the door was Michael Jordan himself. While Grover was thrilled, he was also panicking inside. Everyone knows Michael is a Nike guy, Grover later said, and I was wearing Converse. He hadn't known who the client was, and at 24, he couldn't afford Nikes. I grew up thinking Adidas had 4 stripes, he joked. And my socks weren't exactly pristine either. They had holes in them. I thought, if he's focused on the shoes or the socks, then he's not listening to me. I just need him to hear what I have to say. Jordan told Grover he had already spoken to several trainers, and that Grover would be the last. He showed him what the others had proposed and asked for his thoughts. Grover's response caught Jordan off guard. "They're all wrong," he said. "What do you mean they're all wrong?" Jordan asked. "They're pretty much the same across the board." Grover explained, "You've got 3 recurring injury points, your ankle, groin, and hamstring. If we just focus on strengthening those, reduce the strain, and eliminate those weaknesses, you'll become stronger, faster, and more durable, just from that." Jordan was impressed. If he noticed the Converse or the holes in the socks, he never mentioned them. Instead, he gave Grover the job, on one condition. "You've got 30 days, Jordan said. "Start tomorrow." That 30-day trial turned into a 15-year partnership. After losing to the Detroit Pistons for a 3rd straight postseason, Michael Jordan and the Bulls were determined not to get pushed around again. That summer, they committed to a grueling offseason, lifting weights and training together as a team, all with one goal: to finally get past the defending champions. The hard work paid off. The Bulls dominated the regular season, winning 61 games and clinching the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Michael Jordan won his 2nd MVP, averaging 31.5 points, 6 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and 2.7 steals. Their target was clear: dethrone the Pistons, who finished third with a 50-32 record. They got their wish, meeting Detroit once again in the Eastern Conference Finals, this time dead set on vanquishing their tormentors. Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen led the way in dismantling the once mighty Bad Boy Pistons, sweeping them 4-0 to book their first trip to the NBA Finals. Detroit, in sheer frustration, tried to muck up the game by committing hard fouls, but the Bulls kept their poise and handled the physicality and blew out a desperate Pistons team in their home court, 119-95. Michael Jordan put on an all-around clinic, averaging 29.8 points, 5.3 rebounds, 7 assists, 2.3 steals, and 1.8 blocks per game. In the finals, Michael Jordan faced off against a Lakers team led by 31-year-old Magic Johnson, who had finished second to Jordan in MVP voting that season. This Lakers squad was loaded with championship-tested veterans, including James Worthy, Byron Scott, and AC Green. They also featured a young Vlade Divac and Sam Perkins in the front court, giving them size, depth, and skill. The Lakers had just knocked off the top-seeded Portland Trail Blazers and were looking to add one more title to Magic's legendary resume. It would ultimately be his finals appearance before retiring in the offseason following his HIV diagnosis. This was a marquee matchup between the old guard Magic Johnson and the young challenger Michael Jordan, looking to claim the throne as the NBA's best player. Fittingly, the league's top two stars stood on opposite ends, one representing the fading dynasty of the 1980s, the other ready to launch his own after years of playoff heartbreak. Chicago wasn't considered heavy favorites, partly because they were young and making their first finals appearance, while Magic and the Lakers were battle-tested veterans who had captured 5 championships in the 1980s. Game 1 was a stunner. Sam Perkins hit a go-ahead three-pointer with 14 seconds left.
By 2. You see the clock running down. And Perkins goes for 3. He's got it.
And Jordan's potential game winner rattled out, giving the Lakers a 93-91 victory. In Game 2, Jordan picked up 2 early fouls while guarding Magic Johnson, forcing Phil Jackson to make an earlier-than-expected adjustment. He put Scottie Pippen on Magic, a move he had planned to use later in the series. Pippen's defensive versatility became a turning point. His breakout performance as a two-way Swiss Army knife gave the Bulls a new dimension. Chicago responded with 4 straight wins to close out the series in 5 games. Game 5 featured an unlikely hero in John Paxson, who scored 10 points in the closing minutes as the Lakers left him open repeatedly. Jordan finished with 30 points and 10 assists in the clincher, many of them to Paxson, and earned his first Finals MVP. He averaged 31.2 points, 6.6 rebounds, 11.4 assists, 2.8 steals, and 1.4 blocks in a masterful all-around performance.
One thing not mentioned in The Last Dance was how injuries hampered the Lakers. Byron Scott and James Worthy both went down during the series. Worthy, who had re-aggravated an ankle injury from the Portland series, was visibly hobbled in games 2 through 4 and ultimately sat out game 5. Lakers head coach Mike Dunleavy later admitted the injuries derailed their chances, saying, "We felt good about our chances." Worthy, with his 6'9" frame, was often tasked with guarding Jordan for stretches. He wasn't intimidated, the two were teammates at North Carolina, but his injury robbed the Lakers of one of their most important weapons on both ends of the floor. The following season, Michael Jordan and the Bulls turned it up a notch, winning 67 games and clinching the number 1 seed. Jordan claimed his second straight MVP, earning 80 of the 96 possible first-place votes, beating out Clyde Drexler. However, the playoffs didn't go as smoothly as they had hoped. After sweeping a young Miami Heat team in the first round, trouble brewed in the second round against a big, bruising New York Knicks squad, coached by former Lakers head coach Pat Riley. Led by Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley, Xavier McDaniel, and Anthony Mason, the Knicks were physical, relentless, and unafraid of the Bulls. Like the Pistons before them, they made it a war of attrition. The series turned into a 7-game bloodbath.
But when it mattered most, Jordan rose to the occasion, leading the Bulls to a dominant blowout win in Game 7. That victory set up a showdown with a familiar foe, the Cleveland Cavaliers, led by Mark Price and Brad Daugherty. The Bulls handled the Cavs in 6 games, punching their ticket to a second straight NBA Finals, this time against the Portland Trail Blazers, led by none other than Clyde Drexler, the same player Portland had prioritized over Jordan in the 1984 draft. The media billed the 1992 Finals as a showdown between Michael Jordan and Clyde Drexler, the 2 best shooting guards in the league, who had finished first and second in MVP voting. But Jordan took the comparison personally. In Game 1, he made an immediate statement, dropping a finals record 35 points in the first half, including 6 three-pointers. After the 6th one, he gave a now iconic shrug to the broadcast table, as if to say, "Even I don't know what's happening." The Bulls cruised to a dominant 122-89 victory. In Game 6, the Blazers held a 15-point lead heading into the fourth quarter and looked poised to force a decisive Game 7. But Chicago stormed back, led by Scottie Pippen and a gritty bench unit that included Stacey King and Bobby Hansen, who helped cut the deficit to 3 in just 3 minutes. Phil Jackson reinserted Jordan, and as always, he delivered. MJ scored 10 of the Bulls' final 12 points, including 2 off steals, to seal a 97-93 win and clinch Chicago's second straight NBA championship. In the summer of '92, Michael Jordan represented Team USA again, dubbed the Dream Team, as this was the first time NBA players were allowed to compete in the Olympics. But the selection process didn't come without controversy. Isaiah Thomas, a longtime Jordan rival, was notably left off the roster after Jordan reportedly told Rod Thorne, "I won't play if Isaiah's on the Dream Team." The roster was stacked with Hall of Fame talent: Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, John Stockton, Clyde Drexler, Patrick Ewing, Chris Mullin, Karl Malone, and David Robinson. They dominated the Olympics, winning by an average margin of 44 points per game. With Jordan leading the way, basketball's global popularity skyrocketed. The Dream Team were treated more like rock stars than athletes during their time in Barcelona. Mission accomplished. Team USA reclaimed the gold medal after a humiliating bronze finish in 1988. Heading into the 1992-93 season, Michael Jordan had one goal: to win 3 straight titles, something neither Magic Johnson nor Larry Bird, 2 legends he was aiming to surpass, had ever accomplished.
I think Larry and Magic was driving forces for myself. And you have to come up with other different mechanisms to try to drive you even more. And I guess to know that they've never won 3 in a row is a driving force that I have.
The offseason saw a flurry of big moves across the league, but none bigger than the trade that sent Charles Barkley to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for Jeff Hornacek, Andrew Lang, and Tim Perry. The blockbuster deal instantly vaulted the Suns into title contention, building their roster around Barkley's dominant low-post scoring, elite rebounding, and playmaking from the block. Their roster included key contributors like Kevin Johnson, Dan Marley, Richard Dumas, Tom Chambers, and veteran sharpshooter Danny Ainge. Michael Jordan and the Bulls finished the 1992-93 season with 57 wins, the second best record in the Eastern Conference behind the 60-win New York Knicks. Out west, league MVP Charles Barkley led the Phoenix Suns to a 62-20 record, earning the top seed in the playoffs. Chicago rampaged through the first 2 rounds, sweeping both the Hawks and Cavaliers.
This have to come. 2.5 seconds. Jordan again.
To set up a rematch with the physical New York Knicks, a team hungry for revenge after falling to the Bulls in the previous postseason. Things got tense quickly. The Knicks held serve at home and jumped out to a 2-0 series lead.
The Knicks have made it 2 out of 2 against the Chicago Bulls,
raising serious doubts about whether the Bulls could claw their way back. But they regrouped. In Game 3, Chicago responded with a dominant win. Jordan followed up with a 54-point masterpiece in Game 4 to tie the series at 2-2. It was a statement game, a personal response to critics questioning his focus and commitment to the game after he was spotted at an Atlantic City casino following the Game 2 loss. Then came a pivotal Game 5 at Madison Square Garden. The game was tight. With the Bulls clinging to a 1-point lead in the final seconds, Patrick Ewing drove from the top of the key, but lost his balance, flipping a pass to Charles Smith under the basket for what looked like the game-winning layup. But standing in his way were three elite defenders: Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Horace Grant. What followed was one of the most iconic defensive sequences in NBA history. Smith was denied, not once, but 4 times, as the Bulls swarmed him under the rim, ultimately forcing a turnover and stealing the game on the Knicks' home floor.
Time on the shot clock, down to 10. Ewing for Smith. Smith. Stopped. Smith stopped again by Pippen. What a play by Scottie Pippen.
The Bulls then returned to Chicago and closed out the series in Game 6, punching their ticket to a third straight NBA Finals, where the top-seeded Phoenix Suns and Charles Barkley were waiting. The Bulls struck first in the finals, winning the opening 2 games on the road behind Michael Jordan's brilliance. He averaged over 35 points, 9.5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3.5 steals per game across those 2 contests. Barkley and the Suns responded by stealing Game 3 in Chicago, but Jordan answered with a 55-point explosion in Game 4 to give the Bulls a commanding 3-1 series lead. Phoenix rallied in Game 5, surviving elimination with a 108-98 win and forcing a Game 6 back in Arizona. Game 6 was an instant classic, a back-and-forth battle with both teams trading haymakers. The Bulls built an 11-point lead, but went ice cold in the fourth quarter, managing just 7 points. Phoenix seized the moment and led by 4 with under a minute to go, looking poised to force a Game 7. But then, Michael Jordan happened. After a missed jumper by Frank Johnson, Jordan raced coast to coast for a layup to cut the deficit to 2. Following a Dan Marley airball, Scottie Pippen secured the rebound and called timeout. Phil Jackson drew up a play to get the ball to Jordan in the backcourt, allowing him to build momentum. And Jordan passed to Pippen. Barkley gambled for a steal and missed, leaving Pippen with a clear lane. He dumped it off to Horace Grant, who quickly swung it to a wide-open John Paxson on the right wing. Bang! Paxson buried the 3 to give the Bulls the lead with seconds left.
Comes out of this possession. They want Michael to get a full head of steam, try to keep him in the middle of the floor. Well, Pippen got the snap. Here's Paxson for 3. Yes! The Bulls take a 1-point lead at Phoenix.
On the final possession, Grant blocked Kevin Johnson's shot to seal the win. The Chicago Bulls had done the unthinkable. They won their 3rd straight NBA championship. Michael Jordan was named Finals MVP for the 3rd consecutive year. He was on top of the world, the best player in the game. He had just accomplished what even Larry Bird and Magic Johnson hadn't, winning 3 straight championships. But the grind of 3 consecutive finals runs, the added weight of the Olympics, and the constant media pressure, especially surrounding his gambling habits, began to take a toll. Then tragedy struck. His father, his rock, his biggest fan, James Jordan, was murdered, and the grief shattered Michael. Devastated and emotionally drained, Jordan walked away from the game. At just 29 years old, in the heart of his athletic prime, he retired. Not because his body gave out, but because his hunger for the game was gone. Michael Jordan didn't just walk away from basketball. He walked straight into the unknown. In October 1993, just months after his father's death, Jordan shocked the world again by signing a minor league contract with the Chicago White Sox. It wasn't just a publicity stunt. This was personal. Baseball had been James Jordan's first love, and Michael saw it as a way to honor his father's memory. Jordan joined the Birmingham Barons, the White Sox's Double-A affiliate. The transition wasn't easy. He hadn't played baseball since high school, and now he was trying to hit professional curveballs after a decade away from the sport. Still, Jordan approached the game with the same obsessive work ethic he had in basketball. He trained relentlessly. He studied the craft. And while his .202 batting average over 127 games might seem modest, those inside the game were impressed. Terry Francona, his manager at the time, believed that with more time, Jordan could have made it to the majors. But then the world changed again. In 1994, Major League Baseball went on strike, and the idea of Jordan crossing the picket line as a replacement player didn't sit right with him. With no clear path forward in baseball, and whispers growing louder about his possible return, Jordan did what only Michael Jordan could do. On March 19, 1995, 2 words shook the sports world. "I'm back." He suited up for the Chicago Bulls, wearing number 45 instead of his iconic 23, a tribute to his late father and his baseball stint. On March 19, 1995, in front of a packed crowd in Indiana, Michael Jordan played his first NBA game in 21 months. He scored 19 points against the Pacers. While he wasn't yet in peak form, the message was clear. Michael Jordan was back.
Before his return, the Bulls had been treading water, sitting at 34-31 after a 55-win season the year prior, and the roster looked noticeably different from the one he left behind. Horace Grant had signed with the Orlando Magic. Bill Cartwright joined the Seattle Supersonics. Game 6 hero John Paxson had retired, replaced by sharpshooter Steve Kerr. New additions included European sensation Tony Kukoc, the same player Jordan and Pippen famously targeted during the 1992 Olympics. There was also Ron Harper, a former Cavaliers guard who once gave Jordan fits in playoff matchups. And anchoring the middle was Luke Longley, a 7'2" Australian center taking over Cartwright's role in the paint. With Michael Jordan back in the lineup, the Bulls finished the regular season 13-4 and entered the playoffs as the 5th seed. In the opening round, they cruised to a 3-1 series win over the Charlotte Hornets. But the real test came in the second round against the top-seeded Orlando Magic, a young, hungry team led by Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, both with championship aspirations of their own. Jordan had his moments, but the long layoff and the effects of his baseball body began to show. He looked mortal. The cracks started in Game 1, when Nick Anderson stripped Jordan from behind in the closing seconds, sealing the win for Orlando. By Game 6, Jordan was visibly gassed. He airballed turnaround jumpers that were normally automatic. He committed uncharacteristic turnovers. He couldn't summon the usual heroics we'd grown so used to. The Bulls lost the series, and for the first time, Michael Jordan looked human.
That summer, he had one goal: avenge the humiliating loss to the Orlando Magic. Immediately after Game 6, Jordan and his trainer Tim Grover got to work. Their mission was clear: rebuild Jordan's stamina and explosiveness, and transform his baseball body back into a basketball-ready frame. They trained relentlessly throughout the offseason. Even while filming Space Jam, Jordan stayed locked in. A special facility, the Jordan Dome, was built for him on the Warner Brothers lot, where he worked out by day and scrimmaged by night. He invited the NBA's best to play: Reggie Miller, Alonzo Mourning, Glenn Rice, the who's who of 1990s basketball. In the offseason, the Bulls addressed their front court needs by trading for 34-year-old Dennis Rodman, who was coming off a turbulent 2-year stint with the San Antonio Spurs, where he never fit into their system. He clashed with then Spurs GM Greg Popovich and had little respect for David Robinson, whom he considered soft. He had problems with David's intensity and work ethic in practice. One thing about Dave, he could be the most talented player and athlete in the NBA. Therefore, he's not a big practice guy, not a big work ethic guy. By January, Dave would have sat out 30 practices. It's tendinitis. It's I'm sore today. Whatever it was, Dennis is a practice guy, and it didn't sit well with Dennis. That caused a lot of problems, wrote Roland Lazenby in Blood on the Horns. After 2 seasons in San Antonio, Rodman was traded to Chicago for backup big man Will Perdue. With Michael Jordan's leadership and win-at-all-costs mentality, Even in practice, Rodman proved to be a perfect fit in the Bulls' system. The result? Chicago posted a then NBA record 72 wins in the regular season. They swept the Miami Heat in the first round, 3-0, dispatched the New York Knicks in 5 games, 4-1, and set up a highly anticipated rematch with the Orlando Magic in the Eastern Conference Finals, the team that had eliminated them the year before. Michael Jordan and the Bulls dismantled the Magic 4-0, punctuated by a masterful 45-point performance in Game 4, a not-so-subtle response to Nick Anderson's infamous remark during the 1995 playoffs, 45 isn't 23. In the finals, Chicago faced the Seattle Supersonics, led by Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp. The Bulls stormed to a 3-0 lead, and a sweep seemed inevitable. But Seattle fought back, winning the next 2 games. Payton credited the turnaround to a defensive adjustment that had him guarding Jordan, holding MJ to under 25 points per game. Jordan, in typical fashion, scoffed at the idea in The Last Dance, saying he had other things on his mind, specifically his late father. The Bulls closed out the Sonics in Game 6, 87-75, on Father's Day, a championship Jordan dedicated to James Jordan. He didn't have a vintage scoring night, finishing with 22 points, but he added 9 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals. After the game, Jordan was seen sobbing in the locker room, overcome with emotion, wishing the man who had always been by his side was there to celebrate. The next season, the Bulls came close to another 70-win campaign, finishing 69-13 after losing their final regular season game to the New York Knicks, 103-101, when Pippen missed a potential game-winning 3. In the playoffs, Michael Jordan and the Bulls swept the Washington Bullets 3-0, dispatched the Atlanta Hawks 4-1, and took down the Miami Heat 4-1. That set up a final showdown with the West top seed, the Utah Jazz, led by Karl Malone and John Stockton. Chicago took the first 2 games, highlighted by Jordan's iconic buzzer beater over Brian Russell in Game 1. Utah responded by holding serve at home, tying the series 2-2. Then came Game 5, the legendary flu game. Technically, as Jordan revealed years later in The Last Dance, it was actually food poisoning. Battling a 103-degree fever, Jordan willed the Bulls to a pivotal road win, scoring 38 points, including a dagger three-pointer with 27 seconds remaining. The Bulls closed out the series in Game 6, sealed by Steve Kerr's clutch jumper off a John Stockton double team on Jordan, capturing their 5th NBA championship, and Jordan's 5th Finals MVP. Even after winning back-to-back titles, trouble brewed in Chicago. Jerry Krause stirred the pot when he said, "I don't care if it's 82-0 this year, you're gone." Phil Jackson, ever the master motivator, called the season the last dance. More trouble brewed as Scottie Pippen, who wasn't happy with his contract situation since Krause didn't offer him an extension, delayed surgery just before the season because he felt undervalued by the team. Then, in November, a frustrated Pippen demanded a trade from the Bulls, saying that he wouldn't come off the injured list until the team traded him. Despite Pippen's absence, the Bulls had a 26-12 record without Scottie Pippen. Jordan averaged 28.7 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 3.4 assists in 38 games without Pippen to keep the Bulls' championship hopes alive in the regular season. Rumors of a Pippen for McGrady trade surfaced, but Michael Jordan vetoed the deal. Pippen eventually returned, making his season debut against the Golden State Warriors, and with him back, the Bulls tore through the regular season, finishing with 62 wins. However, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Chicago lost both regular season matchups against the Utah Jazz, the top seed in the West. The Bulls cruised through the first 2 rounds, sweeping the banged-up New Jersey Nets 3-0 in a series that was closer than the sweep might suggest. In the second round, they faced the Charlotte Hornets in a matchup against former teammate B.J. Armstrong. After hitting the game-winning jumper in Game 2, Armstrong stared down Jordan on the Bulls' bench, a move he would come to regret. In typical MJ fashion, Jordan responded by averaging 30.3 points over the next 3 games, dismantling the Hornets in a 4-1 series win and advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals against Reggie Miller and the Indiana Pacers, coached by Larry Bird. The Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers was a battle from start to finish. Reggie Miller's clutch shooting, Larry Bird's coaching adjustments, and Indiana's physical defense pushed Chicago to the brink. The series went the full 7 games, only the third time in the Bulls' championship runs that a playoff series went the distance. Game 7 was a physical, low-scoring slugfest between the East's 2 best teams. Indiana struck first, racing to a 12-point lead in the opening quarter, but the Bulls responded by relentlessly attacking the paint and dominating the glass. Jordan struggled early, missing 7 straight shots at one point. The Pacers had a chance to put real pressure on Chicago after a Derek McKee defensive stop on MJ, forcing a jump ball between Jordan and Rick Smits, who nearly had a foot over him. If Indiana won the tip, they could have extended their lead to 5. However, the Bulls controlled it, with Scottie Pippen grabbing the ball. On the ensuing possession, Jordan missed a mid-range jumper, but Chicago secured another offensive rebound, eventually finding Steve Kerr for a 3 that tied the game, a momentum swing. Antonio Davis answered with a banked layup to put Indiana back up 2. After 2 Jordan free throws, the game was tied with 5 minutes remaining. The Bulls then took the lead on a Scottie Pippen jumper off yet another offensive rebound. After a defensive stop, Jordan drove to the lane and drew a foul on Derek McKee, but missed both free throws, still leaving the door open. Following a Rick Smits miss, Jordan drove again and found Luke Longley for a wide-open jumper, giving Chicago a 4-point cushion with just over 3 minutes left. The Pacers stayed alive with timely baskets, keeping it a 1-possession game until Scottie Pippen scored on an and one. After Pippen missed the free throw, Jordan grabbed a crucial offensive rebound to drain more clock. On the next possession, Ron Harper deflected a Mark Jackson entry pass to Rick Smits, effectively sealing the win. In the end, Chicago's defense winning the rebounding, winning the battle on the boards 50-34, crushed Indiana's hopes. The Bulls prevailed 88-83, securing their 6th trip to the NBA Finals in 8 years. Waiting for them was a familiar foe, the Utah Jazz, led by Karl Malone and John Stockton, holding home court advantage. Unlike their previous finals meeting, the Bulls entered the 1998 series against the Jazz as underdogs. They had lost the regular season series 2-0 and were coming off a grueling physical 7-game battle with the Pacers. Fatigue was a major concern for the aging champions, while Utah came in well-rested after sweeping the Shaq and Kobe-led Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. In Game 1, the Jazz showed why they were favored, beating the Bulls after John Stockton hit a runner over Steve Kerr to seal the win. Chicago regrouped, however, taking the next 3 games, including a dominant 96-54 blowout in Game 3, to grab a commanding 3-1 series lead. But the Bulls couldn't close it out in Game 5, forcing them into the daunting task of winning a potential clincher on the road in Salt Lake City. Heading into Game 6, Scottie Pippen was already battling lingering back issues that had hampered him throughout the season. Early in the game, he aggravated the injury after a dunk, a setback that would affect him for the rest of the night. With Pippen hobbled, the Bulls had to rely even more on Jordan and Kukoc for offense. This was a tight, physical, low-scoring game. Chicago punched first, taking an early 9-point lead in the first quarter, but Utah punched back, cutting that deficit down to 1 after a Hornacek 3, and eventually took a 3-point lead, closing the first quarter. After the initial bursts, the game turned into a back-and-forth battle, with neither team giving an inch. Michael Jordan struggled at times. He had to shoulder the scoring load, taking 35 shots and making 15 for 45 points.
Tony Kukoc provided some help with 15 points,
But no other Bull scored more than 8. The Bulls looked to be in trouble after John Stockton buried a wide-open 3 with 42 seconds left. What followed could be one of the greatest closing sequences by a single player in NBA history. Out of a timeout, Jordan got the ball at the top of the key, drove past Russell, and banked in a quick layup in just 4 seconds to cut the lead to 1. On the next possession, Jordan left Hornacek to double on Malone, and as Stockton fed the ball to Malone, Jordan swooped in for the steal. Bringing the ball up, Jordan sized up Russell, drove hard to his right, then crossed over. As Russell stumbled, Jordan pulled up at the elbow and drained the jumper, holding his follow-through for an extra beat. Bulls by 1.
17 seconds from Game 7 or from championship number 6. Jordan, open, Chicago with the lead!
After Stockton's final 3-point attempt missed, Michael Jordan celebrated his 6th championship. However, the game wasn't without controversy. There were 2 crucial missed calls. First, the Howard Isley buzzer-beating three-pointer that was waved off in the second quarter.
Isley, 2 seconds to shoot. And he hits the three!
And second, the Ron Harper jumper that counted despite appearing to come after the buzzer, tying the game at 79. It's important to note that this was the 1998 season, well before the challenge rule was implemented in 2019.
Regardless, with that iconic jumper over Byron Russell, Michael Jordan had done it again. 6 championships, 6 finals MVPs, and 2 separate three-peats. It was the perfect ending, or at least it should have been. But behind the celebrations, the dynasty was crumbling. Bulls GM Jerry Krause had made it clear even before the season that Phil Jackson would not return, no matter what happened. Even if he goes 82-0, Krause famously said, he's not coming back. Jackson's departure meant the end of the Bulls as the world knew them. Scottie Pippen was traded to the Houston Rockets, Dennis Rodman was let go, Steve Kerr and Luke Longley were moved in separate deals. The core that had dominated the 90s was dismantled piece by piece. And on January 13, 1999, just before the lockout-shortened season began, Michael Jordan announced his retirement for the 2nd time. Officially, he said he had nothing left to prove. Unofficially, the reality was simple. With Phil Jackson gone, Pippen gone, and the roster gutted, the Bulls were no longer contenders. Jordan wasn't interested in starting over. For nearly 3 years, he stayed away from the NBA spotlight. He played golf, spent time with his family, and even worked in the front office of the Washington Wizards, becoming part owner and president of basketball operations in 2000. But the competitive fire never went out. Watching from the executive suite, Jordan grew frustrated with the Wizards' mediocrity. He missed the game, not just the competition, but the grind, the locker room, the chance to test himself against the best once more. In September 2001, at age 38, Michael Jordan announced he was returning to the NBA, this time wearing Wizards blue. His stated reason was simple. He wanted to play the game he loved one more time, mentor the younger players, and give the fans something to cheer for. But deep down, it was the same reason he'd always had, the need to compete. He wasn't the same Jordan from his Bulls prime or even the second three-peat, but he was still having an all-star caliber season, averaging 25.1 points, 6.0 rebounds, and 5.3 assists in 46 games before tearing cartilage in his knee during a game against the Sacramento Kings.
Before the injury, the Wizards were on a 50-win pace, but afterward their season collapsed, going 1-9 in the next 10 games and 11-24 the rest of the way. What's more impressive is that Jordan actually improved as the season progressed, as he played himself back into basketball shape. In his first 20 games, he averaged 22.9 points, 6.4 rebounds, and 5.2 assists on 41.6% shooting. In the final 20 games before the injury, he posted 27.5 points,
6.4 rebounds, and 5.2 assists on 44% shooting.
In his last 10 games pre-injury, he was nearly back to his Bulls-level efficiency, 29.9 points, 6.6 rebounds, and 6.1 assists on 47% shooting. In the 14 games after the injury, Jordan's numbers dipped to 15.7 points, 3.8 rebounds, and 4.8 assists on 39.1% shooting. Still, he refused to sit out, even while hurt. It's worth remembering that this was the season Jordan donated his entire salary to 9/11 victims, proof he was truly playing for the love of the game, not for stats. The next season, Jordan played all 82 games, including the All-Star game, despite battling knee issues that required fluid to be drained regularly. He was again selected as an All-Star in his final season and nearly hit the game-winning jumper, if not for Kobe Bryant spoiling the storybook ending. In his farewell year, Jordan averaged 20 points, 6.1 rebounds, 3.8 assists, and 1.5 steals, while shooting 44% from the field, all while dealing with constant knee soreness that would have sidelined most players.
By the spring of 2003, the grind had finally caught up to him. His knees ached, his body no longer recovered like it once did, and the Wizards were far from championship contention.
On April 16, 2003, in Philadelphia, Michael Jordan walked off an NBA court for the final time. With the crowd chanting his name, even the opposing team, the Sixers, stopped the game to honor him. It wasn't the fairy tale ending of a championship game winner like 1998, but in many ways, it was more human. Jordan had nothing left to prove. He'd already done it all. 6 championships, 6 finals MVPs, 5 regular season MVPs, 14 All-Star appearances, 10 scoring titles, and countless unforgettable moments that turned basketball into a global phenomenon. But Jordan's legacy wasn't just about numbers and trophies. He transformed the business of basketball. Before him, player shoe deals were modest endorsements. After him, they became multi-million-dollar empires. The Air Jordan line didn't just break sales records, it rewrote the playbook for athlete marketing, paving the way for today's superstars to build their own brands and fortunes off the court. His second retirement closed the book on a career that set the gold standard for greatness and redefined what it meant to be a global sports icon. His influence reached far beyond the hardwood, inspiring generations of players, changing the economics of the sport, and embedding "Be Like Mike" into pop culture history. Even 2 decades later, his impact still echoes. Every game-winning shot, every highlight reel dunk, every flash of competitive fire lives on, not just in the record books, but in the DNA of the game itself.